Welcome to the HBR IdeaCast from Harvard Business Review. I'm Sarah Green. I'm here today with Harvard Business School professor Teresa Amabile, the author with Stephen Kramer of the new book, The Progress Principle. Teresa, thanks so much for coming in.
My pleasure, Sarah.
So let's just start by talking about what is the Progress Principle?
It's a surprising impact of simply making forward movement on meaningful work on the people who are doing the work. My co-author Stephen Kramer and I studied nearly 12,000 daily diaries of people working on creative project teams in order to look at their inner work life. And inner work life is our term for the perceptions, emotions, and motivations that people experience as they react to and make sense of the events in their workday. What we found was that when people's inner work lives were more positive, they perform better. So we asked ourselves, what is it that influences inner work life? If inner work life has such a positive impact on performance. We found that of all the things that can drive people in their work and make them feel good about the work, the single most important is simply making progress on work that they find meaningful.
Okay, well that sounds simple, but I think we've all probably had days where we felt like we weren't making much progress. So how much progress do you really need to make to get that feeling?
Surprisingly little. In fact, we call this the power of small wins. We found that even, for example, if a computer programmer was trying to track down a problematic bug in the program, simply doing that, simply solving that little problem could lead to extraordinarily positive inner work life, great emotions, very powerful motivation for the work, and great perceptions of the work. Now, that's a seemingly small thing, but we found that 28% of really minor, seemingly trivial events had a strong impact on people's inner work lives, in the positive direction and unfortunately in the negative direction too.
So what happens when that negative direction takes hold?
Unfortunately, we found that with events of all kinds of work events, negative is more strong than positive. So the negative impact of having a setback in the work, for example, is 2 to 3 times stronger than the positive impact of making progress. So it's particularly important to avoid the minor hassles that can derail people's work during the average workday.
So if you're feeling like you'd sort of like to harness the power of these small wins and hopefully avoid some of the hassles, and you'd like to feel like you're making more progress, what should you do?
I think there's a lot that people can do for themselves to try to harness the progress principle. The most important is to focus. We found that a lot of people now, in fact the majority of people in organizations, are under a lot of time pressure, feeling high workload pressure. It's really easy to slip into being on a treadmill. And that's our term for running all the time, feeling like you're juggling a lot of balls that are being thrown at you, but not making real progress on the work that's most important, the work that's really going to use your creative brain, and the work that the organization really needs to become the innovative leader in its field. So it's very important for each of us to try to preserve at least half an hour or an hour a day where we're not going to be distracted by other demands, where we can really focus in on the work that's most important to us, that's most meaningful to us, and most important to the organization. Now, sometimes that means you have to come in a half hour before anyone else or stay a half hour later. Sometimes it means you need to go to a coffee shop or find yourself a little conference room that's unused. But it's really important to get that focus. The other thing you can do is keep track of your small wins. Keep track of your progress every day. That can be very motivational.
So if you're a manager of someone, how can you make it easier for them to do these kinds of things?
There are a couple of things that managers can do to harness the progress principle. First of all, you can help people make progress in their work. I know that sounds kind of obvious, but you can provide what we call catalysts. These are things like giving people clear goals in the work so they know what it is they're trying to accomplish and why it's important, why it's going to make an important contribution. At the same time, managers can give people autonomy in deciding how to meet those goals. they can also give people sufficient resources for doing the work. Not necessarily lavish resources, but enough to get the work done. And they can make sure that people have the help they need, the information, the access to materials, to someone who knows something about the problems that they're trying to solve day by day, who can sit down and collaborate with them. Managers can do a lot to clear away the obstacles as well. So every one of these catalysts has an opposite, which is an inhibitor. And finally, it's really important for managers to support people as human beings, to make sure that they feel respected and recognized for their value in the organization.
Well, Teresa, you've helped us make some progress towards making progress, I think, today. Thanks so much for coming in.
You're very welcome, Sarah.
That's Teresa Amabile from Harvard Business School. The book is The Progress Principle. For more, go to hbr.org.